Before we get started, I'd like to say something about Aaron Eisenberg. He played Nog on Deep Space Nine and died this week at the age of 50. He was one of the standout actors in that show, one of many great performers in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and he will be missed. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and today we're talking about Battlestar Galactica. News this week is that it has come to yet another reboot, and this time to be run by Sam Esmail, who was behind Homecoming and Mr. Robot. The original show was in 1978. Glenn Larson brought it in as kind of a TV series to satisfy people who wanted Star Wars to become a TV series. All they had to do was, wait 40 years and they'd get it, right? The first series of Battlestar Galactica was interesting. It came on ABC, and it was interesting in that while we hadn't had really any science fiction TV shows for some time, it came on with the same kind of production values that Star Wars had. It had a lot of blue screen shots. It had a lot of the break apart a dozen model ships and piece them all together into a spaceship looking thing. And Galactica was actually a pretty good design, and so were the fighters and, generally speaking, the special effects. They were able to do it on a budget because some of their inside sets were quite obviously plywood, but even in and dimly lit in most places, so you couldn't tell that there was not much to it. In fact, on the bridge of the Galactica, they used video games, old 8-bit video games, to give it kind of a high-tech look. You take the lights down to a certain thing and take them slightly out of focus, and you wouldn't know that they weren't high-tech, futuristic type of devices there. What it added to the cultural lexicon was a number of terms. The first time that they were able to actually curse on television without actually cursing, using words like frack and felgercarb and gullmunging and socialator and various other things that were words that were not easily used on broadcast television of the time. And so it was kind of clever to watch that. The characterizations were pretty good. Lorne Greene did a great job as Commander Adama. He had the gravitas of Ben Cartwright in space, and even had two young men who were basically like Hoss and Little Joe. You had Starbuck, who was kind of the rabble-rouser, and you had Apollo, who was Adama's son, who was the serious warrior. And they had the entire world building done pretty well in the show. It got a little campy as it went on because they had kind of a limited idea. They were escaping their planet and looking for a planet called Earth, and they either would never find it, or by 1980, retitling the show Galactica 1980 without all of the original characters in it, it became just a little too juvenile, for my taste anyway, and it finally went away. In 2004, it was rebooted. Showrunner was Ronald Moore, who came from Star Trek The Next Generation and other Star Trek projects, and gave it a much more gritty type of appearance, bringing in Edward James Olmos as Commander William Adama. They instead of having the alien-sounding names, they gave everybody real names, and those that had, like Apollo and Starbuck, became kind of call signs for their fighters. And in fact, they changed the gender of Starbuck to be a character by the name of Kara Thrace. Had kind of the same daredevil type of personality. In fact, Boomer was also changed in gender and in race. And Colonel Ty, who was just kind of the right-hand guy to Commander Adama, became a flawed individual, played in the reboot series. So there were real-world problems. There were they got away from most of the campy aspects of it and made it where it could have been a show that was done on a Navy ship. You have the military type of things and also the personal kind of things that made the show very believable, and added in that their enemies, the Cylons, who in the original series were just chrome-plated robots, here they were human-looking and could even impersonate real humans in a way that Galactica would never know if everybody on their crew was one of them or one of the enemy. They brought back Baltar this time as being a flawed individual who is mistaken for, who is actually kind of a traitor rather than just a person twirling his mustache as it was in the original series. He is a much more complex, compromised individual. So it was a good reboot, and it ran its course on Sci-Fi. And so now with this current reboot, which Sam Esmail says is not a reboot, but kind of a continuation of Moore's basic premise and style with a new cast. So we're interested in seeing what that looks like. Now, here's the rub. The way you're going to see it is to have to purchase yet another streaming service. NBC Universal is starting up its own service called Peacock, and on Peacock, Battlestar Galactica is going to be one of the capstones of it, but they have a number of other new shows that are coming that way. We'll have Punky Brewster is being rebooted. Soleil Moon Frye will still be in it, but she will now be a mother of 3, and she adopts a little girl who reminds her of herself in previous series. Then Saved by the Bell is going to be rebooted. Other programs like Brave New World, Dr. Death, AP Bio, which has already been on, but season 4 will move to Peacock. Rutherford Falls, a new show for Ed Helms, and other things. So this is where it looks like it's going, that if we want to see a variety of science fiction, to see all the Trek things, we're going to need CBS All Access. To see The Orville, we're going to need Hulu. To see Battlestar Galactica, we're going to need Peacock. We don't know where it's going to end. Disney Plus, of course, for all the Star Wars TV series that are going to be coming up, and who knows what's going to spring up next. I guess we'll just have to see. Meanwhile, let me know what you think. See if you can remember some of the euphemisms that they used in the original Battlestar Galactica. I know in the reboot they used frack a lot, but I don't think that they used most of the other names for things. Oro instead of gold, solanite instead of dynamite, things such as this. And some of the various other things that were used in the original series that had it caused other series to kind of pick up on that. We know that in Farscape they used a lot of words like dren and yachts in order to be able to frelling, in order to be able to curse without actually doing anything that you couldn't say on television. So please let me know what you think about this in the comments. And of course, if you've not subscribed to this channel, please do. And please do also ring the bell so you know when the next video comes your way. You may have missed me last week. I did not get a video out last week because of the storm that hit Southeast Texas. I've never really said where I'm from, but unfortunately the storms have not affected me personally, but they have affected family and friends, and we've been kind of helping them out. So forgive us that we weren't able to get a video out last week, but we're back on the job, and we will keep up with the latest things that happen in sci-fi television. And until then, don't go far.